The United States military is often regarded as one of the world's premier fighting forces. Much of this is owed to a coveted subset of the military known as Special Operations Forces. The use of small, specialized units in war has not always been the obvious option. However, the generations lost to the trench warfare of World War I forced the Allied forces of World War II to pivot in combat tactics. Thus, the United States military formed the Naval Combat Demolition Units. The ensuing legacy of the NCDUs marked an important positive turning point not only in U.S. military capability, but in the effectiveness of American diplomacy.
In the early 1940s, the U.S. military deliberated on how to land their fighting forces on the beaches of Europe and Asia with the least number of casualties. Their answer was the Naval Combat Demolition Units, NCDUs. In June 1943, at Fort Pierce, Florida, Lieutenant Draper Kaufman began training volunteers for this new program. Through training, which consisted of intense physical requirements, reconnaissance, explosives, and a fairly new skill, small unit tactics training, this special kind of soldier was born. U.S. Navy Commander Milton Miles was sent to the Chinese coastline with orders to establish weather stations to guide naval operations in the Pacific. However, by 1944, General Tai Li, the closest confidant of Chiang Kai-shek, the Generalissimo of the Chinese National Revolutionary Army, trusting only Miles, requested he train and arm 50,000 guerrillas. The purpose of these Chinese guerrillas would be to disrupt the supply lines and communications that made the Japanese invasion on China so devastating. The commander agreed, developing the Sino-American Cooperative Organization, SACO, with the Nationalist Party leaders. Intelligence gathered on the Chinese disclosed their immense discomfort with the occupying divisions of the U.S. Army, which caused economic strain on Chinese villages. Commander Miles presented the use of NCDUs and other special sailors as a smaller alternative that took into consideration diplomatic relations with China. SACO was the beginning of NSW's involvement with operations other than war. A major success for NSW, SACO has continued to be an example of diplomacy successfully integrated into asymmetric warfare. Miles himself provided NSW leadership with a clear example of what kind of men it took to lead and conduct sensitive, diplomatic, and tactical missions. As the adaptability of the NCDUs became a more widely desirable trait both in water and land-based operations, they were disestablished, the newer underwater demolition teams taking their place. With the organizational culture and grit of the NCDUs and training in land-based missions, the UDTs saw action in Korea and Vietnam.
Starting in the Vietnam War, UDT units were more largely associated with the larger SEAL teams. The next logical step in small unit evolution, SEAL teams relied on the aquatic know-how of their forefathers while specializing in areas other than explosive ordnance. SEAL, standing for Sea, Air, Land, indicates this Special Operations Force's new ability to operate in all terrain. Just as the NCDUs transformed into UDTs in order to meet new operational demands, the SEALs proved themselves as the necessary deterrent to a new sort of enemy. On June 6, 1962, John F. Kennedy delivered the speech, Another Type of Warfare, at the graduation ceremony of West Point Military Academy. Addressing the burgeoning threat of foreign asymmetric paramilitaries, Kennedy supported the official inception of the SEAL teams in that same year, seeing these new threats as a turning point in national security focus, and the SEALs as the best answer. While SEAL teams provided unprecedented combat lethality throughout the second half of the 20th century and into the 21st century, they also carried forward the legacy of intellectual lethality, lending to their use in highly sensitive diplomatic crises. On the 20th of March 2003, a Naval Special Warfare Task Group consisting of U.S. Navy SEALs and Polish GROM executed one of the largest direct action missions conducted in Operation Iraqi Freedom. The goal was to simultaneously take control of two offshore oil platforms, Mina al-Bakr, known as Maybot, and Khor al-Amaya, known as Kayab. and secure their onshore pipeline support valves located on the Al Faw Peninsula. By taking control of these targets before Iraqi forces could damage them, the group would avert a massive environmental disaster. Should this mission have failed, Iraqi forces could have blown the support valves, releasing over 950,000 barrels of oil into the Persian Gulf a day. 1 month after the attacks on the World Trade Center, Operation Enduring Freedom was launched in Afghanistan and in the Philippines. In the Philippines, the Joint U.S. Military Assistance Group was formed to combat Abu Sayyaf, an extension of Al Qaeda. Unique to JustMag, the unit had U.S. Navy SEALs and U.S. diplomats working together. JustMag is often referred to as one of the most successful of the foreign anti-terrorism interventions. Specifically, during the Balakatan operations, a small 5-man task unit from SEAL Team 3 conducted strategic field intelligence work in 2004. Within 4 months, the special unit had successfully opened communications with key politicians in the Davao region and secured positive relations with future president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte. Where U.S. Embassy and even CIA counterparts were stonewalled, the SEAL Task Unit, through cultural adaptation, produced results within weeks. Perceived failed operations have brought naval special warfare under criticism by politicians, the media, and the SEAL teams. 2 key examples would be Operation Urgent Fury in Grenada and Operation Just Cause in Panama. Upon closer examination, these operations, and a few others, truly highlight not the supposed ineptitude or impotency of SEAL teams, but actually that while special warfare operators are invaluable in precision missions, they cannot compensate for instances calling for larger conventional forces. On the evening of May 1st, 2011, 24 SEALs were inserted into the town of Abbottabad, Pakistan, as a part of Operation Neptune Spear. At the direct orders of the President of the United States, the team located, secured, and killed Osama bin Laden in less than 40 minutes. Bin Laden is widely considered the mastermind behind the 9/11 attacks and ultimately responsible for the
murder of thousands of innocent men, women, and children.
While this operation is widely controversial and made for diplomatic fallout between U.S. and Pakistan, it is important to note that despite questions of ethics and morality, the SEAL teams designed and executed their orders with impeccable combat and intellectual abilities.
The matter is, if you want to be surgical and you want to make sure that you're doing it right, you kind of have to put boots on the ground. And I think that's what went through the president's thought process, was if you do a strike and it turns out he's not there, then innocent people would have been killed, and certainly the president didn't want that.
The SEALs continued to provide uniquely reliable solutions to the U.S. policymakers, politicians, and diplomats that were otherwise limited in options. No matter the politics of the situation, when given orders, the SEALs produced results that took into consideration culture, language, and the diplomatic and even environmental consequences should they fail.
We're directed by the civilian administration, Our bosses are not Army generals and admirals. They're civilians. They've got strategic requirements, and if they come to us asking if we can do it, and we say yes, then by God, we're going to do it.
The extraordinary vision of a few special men allowed their descendants to take forward the success of the past while adapting to the problems of the future. As the face of war took on a new shape, so too did naval special warfare. During the second half of the 20th century, the U.S. Navy SEALs acted as a uniquely reliable military command, capable of distinguishing between tactics and diplomacy where other units could not. The presence of SEAL teams act as a deterrent against asymmetric threats and, when tasked with highly complex political and diplomatic issues, consistently provide effective combat solutions. Through examination of their purpose, it is accurate to say the evolution of the Navy SEALs has provided for a most adaptive, positive turning point in U.S. military, intelligence, and foreign diplomatic capability.